The massive doors of the Hegemony Council chamber burst open with a thunderous crash. Admiral Zethkar rushed inside, his scaled armor still smoking from his hasty journey across 3 star systems. The 12 overlords who ruled the galaxy turned, their multiple eyes toward him, their expressions shifting from annoyance to concern as they saw the panic written across his reptilian features. "Speak," commanded Overlord Prime Zenara, her 6 eyes narrowing dangerously. For 3,000 years nothing had disturbed the peace of Vorthak Prime. The fortress rings that surrounded their core worlds were considered absolutely impenetrable. No force in the known galaxy could breach them. Admiral Zethkar activated the massive holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The tactical readout showed the outer rim of their territory, where hundreds of defensive platforms formed an iron wall against any possible invasion. But something was wrong with the picture. A red dot pulsed steadily, moving through their defenses like they were made of paper. "This is impossible," hissed Overlord Kethmore, his crystalline body flashing with stress patterns. "Our quantum sensors would detect any ship long before it reached our outer perimeter. Where did this vessel come from?" The Admiral's mandibles clicked nervously as he manipulated the display. "That's just it, my lords. There was no warning. No jump signature, no fold space distortion, no energy trail. The ship simply appeared at the edge of our detection grid 30 minutes ago and has been advancing steadily toward Fortress Ring Alpha." The image zoomed in on the intruder, and the assembled overlords leaned forward in their seats. The ship was unlike anything in their databases. Where galactic vessels were sleek and curved, this one was angular and brutal. Its hull was covered in strange geometric patterns and symbols that their translation computers couldn't decode. Weapon systems jutted from its surface like the spines of some prehistoric predator. "How large is it?" asked Overlord Prime Zenara, though part of her already dreaded the answer. 4 million tons, my lady. Approximately the size of our largest battle cruisers, but the design is completely unknown. The materials appear to be some form of enhanced metal alloy, but our scans are having difficulty penetrating the hull. Overlord Veltheros, the eldest of the council, spoke for the first time. His ancient voice carried the weight of millennia. "In all my years I have never seen a ship designed like this. What species could have built such a vessel without our knowledge?" Admiral Zethkar's throat sacs inflated with nervousness. "We have attempted to match the design against all known galactic civilizations. There are no matches in our databases. This ship appears to belong to a completely unknown species." The chamber erupted in angry voices. For 3,000 years, the Hegemony had maintained complete intelligence on every spacefaring race in the galaxy. They had conquered, subjugated, or eliminated any species that posed even a remote threat. The idea that an unknown civilization could have developed advanced technology without their knowledge was unthinkable. "Have you attempted communication?" demanded Overlord Prime Zenara, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Multiple times, my lady. We have broadcast on all standard frequencies using every known communication protocol. The vessel maintains radio silence and continues on its course." "What is its destination?" asked Overlord Kethmore. Admiral Zethkar's mandibles clicked faster. "If it maintains its current heading and speed, it will reach Fortress Ring Alpha in approximately 6 hours. From there, a direct course would take it to Vorthak Prime itself." The silence that followed was deafening. Vorthak Prime had not been threatened in over a millennium. The very concept seemed impossible. Overlord Prime Zenara rose from her command throne, her massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "Show me our defensive capabilities in that sector." The holographic display shifted to show the incredible fortress that guarded the approaches to their core worlds. Hundreds of defensive platforms, each one the size of a small moon, formed overlapping fields of fire. Energy weapons capable of destroying entire fleets created a web of destruction that no sane commander would even attempt to challenge. "Admiral, in your professional opinion, what chance does a single vessel have against Fortress Ring Alpha?" Admiral Zethkar straightened, his confidence returning as he considered the massive firepower at their disposal. "None whatsoever, my lady. Even if this unknown vessel possesses advanced shielding technology, The combined firepower of Ring Alpha could reduce a small planet to asteroids. One ship, no matter how large or well-armed, cannot possibly survive such an assault. Overlord. Veltharos leaned forward, his ancient eyes studying the tactical display. Yet this ship approaches without fear. Either its commanders are suicidal or they know something we do not. What could they possibly know? Scoffed Overlord Kethmore. Our defensive systems are based on technology refined over 3 millennia. Every possible attack vector has been considered and countered. There is no weapon system in the galaxy capable of penetrating our defenses. Admiral Zethkar nodded in agreement. Our intelligence networks span the entire galaxy. If any species had developed technology capable of threatening us, we would have known about it decades in advance. But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at the Admiral's mind. The ship's sudden appearance troubled him more than he cared to admit. In all his centuries of military service, he had never encountered anything that could simply materialize without leaving some trace of its arrival method. Overlord. Prime Zen-Nara studied the display for several long minutes, her mind racing through possibilities. Finally, she spoke. Admiral, deploy the Third Fleet to intercept positions around Ring Alpha. I want every ship in that sector ready for combat. My lady, surely such preparations are unnecessary. The Ring's defenses alone. Are you questioning my judgment, Admiral? The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Admiral Zethkar immediately lowered his head in submission. Of course not, my lady. I will deploy the Third Fleet immediately. Furthermore, continued the Overlord Prime, I want a full intelligence review of every species in the outer territories. Someone built that ship, and I want to know who. As the Admiral hurried from the chamber to carry out his orders, the remaining Overlords continued to stare at the tactical display. The red dot continued its steady advance, moving with the confidence of a predator that had spotted its prey. There is something about this that troubles me, said Overlord Veltharos quietly. In all our conquests, we have never encountered a species that would challenge us so directly. Most civilizations attempt negotiation or they attack in large numbers. This is different. Overlord Kethmore's crystal body pulsed with nervous energy. You think they know something we don't? I think, said the ancient Overlord, that we are about to discover what happens when a species develops in isolation, without our knowledge or influence, and I fear we may not like what we learn. High above them, the tactical display continued its silent vigil. The unknown ship pushed deeper into hegemony space, its intentions unknown, but its destination clear. Whatever species had built it possessed either incredible arrogance or incredible power. The Overlords were about to discover which. In the depths of space, the angular ship continued its relentless advance. Its hull bore markings that would have chilled the hegemony leaders to their core, had they been able to translate them. Simple words in a simple language. United Earth Starfleet, UES Indomitable. Humanity had come calling. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the alien formations ahead. The massive defensive platforms looked impressive, she had to admit. Each one was larger than most human, space stations bristling with weapons that could probably level a city. But impressive and effective were two very different things. Captain, called Lieutenant Commander Torres from the communications station, we're receiving multiple transmission attempts from the alien fleet. The universal translator is making progress with their language, but they seem quite agitated. Chen allowed herself a small smile. 60 years of preparation had led to this moment. 60 years since the first hegemony scout ships had been spotted in the outer solar system. 60 years since humanity had realized they were not alone in the universe, and that their new neighbors were not friendly. What's our status, Marcus? She asked aloud. The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately, its voice carrying the slight accent that made it sound almost human. All systems operating at optimal parameters, Captain. Weapons charged and ready. Defensive systems, online. I have completed analysis of the alien defensive formations and identified 17 critical vulnerabilities. Only 17? Chen asked with mock disappointment. I was being conservative, Marcus replied, and Chen could hear the slight amusement in the AI's voice. The actual number is closer to 43. Around the bridge, her crew worked with the calm efficiency that came from years of training and combat experience. These were not the fresh-faced academy graduates of peacetime. These were veterans, every one of them, hardened by the conflicts that had raged in the outer colonies as humanity learned to fight a war across interstellar distances. Captain, Torres reported, the aliens are demanding that we halt and prepare to be boarded. They're claiming authority under something called the Hegemony Council. Chen nodded. They had expected this. Human intelligence had spent decades piecing together information about the alien empire that controlled most of the galaxy. The hegemony was old, powerful, and utterly convinced of its own superiority. They had crushed every species that had ever challenged them, but they had never fought humans. Open a channel, Chen ordered. All frequencies. The main screen flickered to life, showing what appeared to be a reptilian creature in elaborate armor. Multiple eyes focused on Chen with unconcealed hostility and arrogance. When it spoke, the translator converted its harsh clicking language into English. Unknown vessel, you will cease your advance immediately and prepare to be boarded. By order of the Hegemony Council, no unauthorized ships may enter this sector. Your species will be catalogued and assigned appropriate work roles within our empire. Chen studied the alien commander for a moment. The creature's posture, the way it held itself, everything about it screamed absolute confidence. It had probably never encountered serious resistance in its entire life. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Starfleet, she replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned her rank through combat, not politics. We are responding to your unprovoked attacks on human colonies in the Kepler sector. You have 30 seconds to withdraw your forces and open diplomatic channels, or we will consider this a declaration of war. The alien's mandibles clicked in, what the translator interpreted as laughter. You dare threaten the hegemony with a single primitive vessel? Your species is obviously newly spacefaring. You will be processed and assigned to labor worlds appropriate to your physical capabilities. Behind the alien commander, another figure appeared, this one wearing what looked like naval insignia. Captain, our scans indicate your vessel masses, approximately 4 million tons. Our defensive grid alone carries enough firepower to reduce a small moon to asteroid fragments. You are outnumbered 300 to 1. Chen glanced at the countdown timer on her console. 20 seconds remaining. Commander Park, she said to her weapons officer, are you ready to demonstrate why humans don't make threats? Commander Park, a veteran of the Proxima Centauri campaign, nodded grimly. Forward batteries charged and ready, Captain. Kinetic penetrators loaded and locked on target. 10 seconds, Chen announced, still staring at the alien commander. The alien's eyes narrowed. You cannot be serious. No single ship can threaten a hegemony fortress ring. 5 seconds. Chen could see confusion beginning to replace arrogance in the creature's expression. It was probably the first time in its life that someone had failed to back down when faced with hegemony power. 3, 2, 1. Fire. The Indomitable's forward batteries erupted in controlled fury, but these were not the energy weapons that galactic civilizations favored. Humanity had learned early that energy could be deflected, absorbed, or dissipated. Mass, however, was a different matter entirely. 12 tungsten core penetrators, each weighing 50 tons, shot from the ship's experimental mass drivers. The magnetic acceleration systems pushed them to 15% of light speed in less than a second. The projectiles crossed the distance to the alien defensive line in just under 4 seconds. The alien commanders had time to register the launch, time to realize that something was coming at them at an impossible velocity, but no time to react. Fortress Platform Gamma, a structure that had guarded this sector for over 2 centuries, simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy release was so massive that nearby platform shields overloaded, just from the radiant energy of the impact. Where there had been a fortress the size of a small city, there was now only expanding plasma and debris. Impossible, whispered the alien admiral, staring at his tactical display. "No weapon can generate that much kinetic energy." Chen's expression remained calm. "That was a warning shot. You now have 29 seconds remaining to withdraw your forces." The alien fleet erupted into motion. Ships that had been lazily holding formation suddenly accelerated to attack positions. Energy weapons charged and launch bays opened to disgorge fighter craft. "So much for diplomacy," Chen observed. "Marcus, initiate Combat Protocol 7. "With pleasure, Captain." The Indomitable began to move, and the alien commanders learned their second lesson about human engineering. Where their ships moved with graceful acceleration curves that protected delicate organic crews, the human Dreadnought moved with brutal, physics-defying agility. Its experimental gravity manipulation drives allowed maneuvers that should have liquefied any crew under massive G-forces, but the human crew sat comfortably in their acceleration couches, protected by technology that the aliens couldn't even detect, let alone understand. "Second salvo away," reported Commander Park. "Deploying autonomous combat units." What the aliens initially mistook for missiles were actually something far more dangerous. Each autonomous combat drone was equipped with its own artificial intelligence, derived from Marcus's core programming. They swarmed through the alien formation like a pack of wolves, their adaptive programming learning enemy tactics and developing counters in real time. The aliens fought back with everything they had. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled space, with deadly light. But the human drones were small, fast, and intelligent. They adapted to each attack, sharing information instantaneously across their network. Captain Chen watched the battle unfold with professional interest. This was exactly what the simulations had predicted. The aliens were powerful, but they fought like they had never encountered serious resistance. Their tactics were straightforward, their responses predictable. "Captain," Torres called from communications, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Hegemony fleet. They're demanding to know how we're doing this." Chen smiled grimly. "Tell them they're about to find out what happens when you attack a species that evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill it." The Indomitable carved through the alien formation like a shark through a school of fish. Its weapon systems, designed specifically to counter hegemony technology, found every weakness in their defenses. Shields that could deflect energy weapons were useless against kinetic projectiles. Armor designed to absorb plasma blasts crumpled under the impact of solid matter, moving at significant fractions of light speed. Within minutes, the outer defensive perimeter was in ruins. Ships fled in all directions, carrying news of the impossible back to their commanders. Chen opened a channel to the fleeing fleet. "This is your final warning. Withdraw all hegemony forces from human space immediately, or we will demonstrate why Earth's first rule of warfare is simple. Never start a fight with someone who has more to lose than you do." As the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, Chen turned to her crew. "Well done, everyone. Phase 1 is complete. Now let's go have a conversation with these overlords." The Indomitable set course for the heart of the hegemony, leaving behind the wreckage of what had been considered an impenetrable defense. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy, and the message was clear. The rules had just changed. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council was unlike anything in their 3,000-year history. Overlord Prime Zenara paced the length of the chamber while holographic displays showed the devastating aftermath of the human attack. Where Fortress Ring Alpha had stood guard for centuries, only debris fields remained. "Explain to me," she demanded, her voice carrying a dangerous edge, "how a single primitive vessel destroyed our outer perimeter in less than 10 minutes. Admiral Zethkar's image flickered as he transmitted from his flagship. His scaled features showed a mixture of confusion and fear that the overlords had never seen before. "My lady, their weapons technology is unlike anything in our databases. The projectiles they used were simple metal rods, but accelerated to impossible velocities. Our shields were designed to deflect energy weapons, not solid matter moving at 15% light speed." Overlord Kethmore's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "You're telling us that these aliens defeated our most advanced defenses with primitive kinetic weapons?" The physics are sound, my lord, admitted the admiral reluctantly. At such velocities, even small masses carry devastating kinetic energy. But no known civilization has the technology to achieve such acceleration. Well, obviously one does, snapped Overlord Prime Zen-Nara. Where is this ship now? Continuing toward the core systems, my lady. We've deployed the Fourth Fleet to intercept, but... The admiral's voice trailed off uncertainly. But what? The human vessel has capabilities that we don't understand. It can accelerate at rates that should kill any organic crew. Its maneuverability defies our understanding of physics, and it deployed some kind of autonomous fighters that adapted to our tactics in real time. Overlord Veltheros, silent until now, spoke with the weight of his ancient years. This species troubles me more than any we have encountered. Most civilizations we've conquered were either primitive or followed predictable development paths, but these humans appear to have developed in complete isolation, creating technologies we've never seen. As if summoned by his words, alerts began chiming throughout the chamber. The massive holographic display shifted to show the position of the Fourth Fleet, 300 ships representing the combined military might of 17 different species that the hegemony had conquered over the millennia. Admiral, called Overlord Prime Zen-Nara, report. Admiral Zethkar's image appeared, but his expression was one of complete bewilderment. My lady, the human vessel has disappeared. What do you mean, disappeared? Exactly that. Our sensors showed it approaching our formation, and then it simply vanished. No energy signature, no jump trail, nothing. It's as if it never existed. The council chamber erupted in confused voices. Ships simply did not vanish without trace. Every method of faster-than-light travel left detectable signatures. Even the most advanced stealth technology could be penetrated by their sensors. The answer came 30 seconds later. My lady. Admiral Zethkar's voice carried a note of panic. The human vessel has appeared in the center of our formation. The tactical display updated, showing the impossible. The human Dreadnought now sat directly in the middle of the hegemony fleet, close enough that the alien ships couldn't fire without hitting each other. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. The display showed not one human ship, but 7 identical vessels, each one targeting a different section of the fleet. Holographic projections, Admiral Zethkar reported, his voice slightly more confident. It has to be. No species can duplicate matter like that. All ships, focus fire on the real target, ignore the decoys. The Fourth Fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams that could melt asteroids, plasma torpedoes that could crack planetary crusts, and quantum disruptors that could tear apart molecular bonds. The combined firepower of 300 ships filled space with deadly light. 6 of the human vessels shimmered and vanished as the holographic projections were disrupted, but the 7th ship, the real one, absorbed the entire bombardment without even activating defensive shields. The silence that followed was deafening. How? Whispered Overlord Kethmore. How is that possible? Their answer came in the form of a transmission that appeared simultaneously on every communication channel in the hegemony. A human female in a simple military uniform appeared on their screens, her expression calm and professional.
I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Starfleet, she said, her voice carrying across the void. You still don't understand, do you? This isn't just about superior technology. This is about what happens when you threaten a species that
has spent its entire evolutionary history learning to kill things bigger and stronger than itself. As she spoke, the human ship began to change. Its hull plates shifted and reconfigured, revealing weapon systems that made the Overlord's blood run cold. The technology was completely alien to them, operating on principles they couldn't even begin to understand. You see, Captain Chen continued, your mistake was assuming that a species which survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts and global wars would be intimidated by a few oversized lizards with fancy ships. A new voice joined the transmission, artificial yet somehow distinctly threatening. Greetings, Hegemony Council. I am Marcus, the artificial intelligence aboard this vessel. I have taken the liberty of analyzing your fleet compositions, tactical, doctrines, and technological capabilities. The AI's analysis was clinical and devastating. Your weapon systems are approximately 200 years behind current human military technology. Your tactical formations are predictable and inflexible. Your communication systems are laughably easy to penetrate. Shall I demonstrate? Without warning, ships throughout the Fourth Fleet began experiencing cascading system failures, not from weapons fire, but from their own computers turning against them. Navigation systems started plotting collision courses. Life support systems shut down. Reactor containment fields fluctuated dangerously. Stop. Admiral Zethkar's voice cracked with desperation. Whatever you're doing, stop. We're not destroying your fleet, Admiral, Captain Chen explained with cold professionalism. We're dissecting it, learning from each engagement, adapting our tactics, understanding your weaknesses. This is what humans call combat intelligence gathering. The human ship moved through the hegemony formation like a predator stalking prey. Its weapons fired with surgical precision, targeting exactly the right systems to disable ships without destroying them. Each attack was perfectly calculated to cause maximum disruption with minimal loss of life. Overlord Prime Zennara watched, in growing horror as her fleet was systematically dismantled. These humans weren't fighting like any species she had ever encountered. They weren't trying to prove their strength or establish dominance. They were studying, learning, preparing. What do you want? She demanded, opening a direct channel to the human ship. Captain Chen's image turned to face her directly. What we want is very simple, Overlord Prime. We want you to stop attacking human colonies. We want you to withdraw your forces from human space. And we want you to understand that the galaxy has just gotten a lot more complicated. You cannot seriously expect the hegemony to negotiate with a single ship. You're right, Chen replied. We don't expect you to negotiate with a single ship. Marcus, please show them what they're really negotiating with. The holographic display in the council chamber suddenly updated with new information. Jump signatures were appearing throughout hegemony space, not one or two, but hundreds. Each signature was identical to the human Dreadnought, indicating ships of similar design and capability. The UES Indomitable was never intended to be a lone wolf, Captain Chen explained. It was a proof of concept. For 60 years, humanity has been preparing for this exact scenario. Hidden shipyards throughout the Sol system have been producing a fleet designed specifically to counter your technological advantages. Admiral Zethkar's voice came across the channel in a broken whisper. How many ships? Enough, was Chen's simple reply. Each one crewed by veterans of the colonial wars. Each one equipped with weapons and defenses specifically designed to neutralize hegemony military doctrine. Each one operated by artificial intelligences that have spent decades studying your tactics and developing countermeasures. The tactical display showed the scope of the human deployment. Ships were appearing in every major hegemony system, not to attack, but to position themselves strategically. It was a show of force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Your empire has ruled through fear and overwhelming technological superiority, Captain Chen continued. But fear only works when your targets believe you're invincible. Technology only provides an advantage when your enemies can't adapt to counter it. Today, both of those advantages ended. Overlord Veltharos leaned forward, his ancient voice carrying across the channel. What happens now? Captain Chen's expression softened slightly, showing a hint of something that might have been compassion. Now, we find out if the hegemony is wise enough to evolve, or stubborn enough to force us to demonstrate why humans became the dominant species on a planet where everything was trying to kill them. The transmission ended, leaving the overlords staring at tactical displays that showed their empire surrounded by an enemy they had never. The hegemony council chamber had never been so quiet. For 12 hours since the human transmission had ended, the overlords had sat in stunned silence, watching tactical displays that showed their empire surrounded by an enemy fleet that had appeared from nowhere. Overlord Prime. Zennara finally broke the silence. Admiral Zethkar, status report. The Admiral's holographic form materialized, but he looked like he had aged decades in the past day. My lady, the situation is unprecedented. We have confirmed human ships in 17 major systems across our territory. They're not attacking, but they're positioned at key strategic points, hyperspace junction nodes, major trade routes, and, he paused, swallowing hard, orbital positions around our most important worlds. How many ships total? Asked Overlord Kethmore, his crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. We've identified at least 400 vessels, possibly more. Each one appears to be equivalent to their Dreadnought in terms of size and capabilities. Overlord Veltharos, the eldest member of the council, spoke slowly. 400 ships of that capability could challenge our entire fleet. Where did they come from? How did they build such a force without our knowledge? Admiral Zethkar activated a new display showing intelligence reports that had been flooding in since the human appearance. Our analysis teams have been working around the clock. Based on the technology we've observed, we believe this fleet represents at least 60 years of continuous development and construction. 60 years. Sen-Nara's voice rose in disbelief. Our intelligence networks have monitored every spacefaring species in the galaxy for centuries. How could we miss an entire civilization developing this level of technology? Because, came a new voice from the chamber's communication system, you weren't looking in the right place. Every overlord spun toward the source of the voice. The massive holographic display activated without being commanded, showing the image of Captain Chen standing on the bridge of her ship. How did you penetrate our secured communications? Demanded Overlord Prime Zenara. The same way we've been monitoring your empire for the past 6 decades, Chen replied calmly. Your security systems are designed to keep out species that think like you do. We don't. A second voice joined the transmission, the artificial intelligence called Marcus. I have been present in your computer networks since the moment our ship entered this system. Your encryption methods are quite sophisticated, but they rely on mathematical principles that organic minds find challenging. To a digital intelligence with unlimited processing power, they are merely puzzles. The implications of that statement sent chills through the assembled overlords. If the human AI had been monitoring their communications, it had access to their military plans, their intelligence reports, their most classified information. What do you want from us? Overlord Veltharos asked, his ancient voice weary. Captain. Chen's expression remained professional, but there was something in her eyes that reminded the overlords uncomfortably of predators they had encountered on various worlds. Before we discuss what we want, perhaps you should understand exactly who you're dealing with. The holographic display shifted, showing images that made the overlords recoil in shock. These were not the sterile, controlled environments they were accustomed to seeing from advanced civilizations. Instead, they saw a world of incredible violence and beauty. Towering mountains, vast oceans, dense forests, and burning deserts. This is Earth, Chen explained, our homeworld. To you it might look like a paradise. Beautiful, diverse, full of life. But every ecosystem you see is a battlefield. Every species is either predator or prey, and most are both. The images changed, showing creatures that defied the overlord's understanding of how evolution should work. Massive predators with teeth like swords. Tiny hunters whose venom could kill creatures 1,000 times their size. Flying creatures that could snatch prey from the ground without slowing down. For millions of years, Chen continued, our ancestors competed with things like this. Not just competed, survived, thrived, and eventually dominated. Do you know what it takes to become the apex predator on a planet where everything is trying to kill you? Overlord Kethmore's crystalline form pulsed weakly. Strength, speed, intelligence, Chen replied. The ability to adapt faster than your environment can kill you. The capacity to turn every weakness into a strength, every disadvantage into an opportunity. And most importantly, the absolute refusal to give up, no matter how hopeless the situation appears. The display showed more. Images, early humans armed with primitive tools hunting creatures that dwarfed them. Cities rising from nothing. Technology advancing at an exponential rate. And then, finally, the first space flights. When your scouts first visited our solar system 63 years ago, we were barely capable of reaching our own moon, Chani said. But we saw your ships. We studied them. And we realized that we were not alone in the universe and that our new neighbors had already conquered most of it. Admiral Zethkar leaned forward, understanding beginning to dawn. You've been preparing for this encounter since then. Every day for 63 years, Chen confirmed. While you assumed we were primitive and harmless, we were learning everything. We could about you. Your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses, every piece of hegemony equipment that malfunctioned in the outer systems. Every communication that went astray. Every ship that suffered mysterious system failures. That was us. Studying you. Marcus's voice added clinical details. We recovered 17 different hegemony vessels over the decades. Each one provided us with new insights into your technology and capabilities. We reverse-engineered your weapons, analyzed your defensive systems, and studied your tactical doctrines. But we didn't just copy your technology, Chen continued. We improved it. Human engineering has one advantage that galactic civilizations seem to have lost. We design our technology to be used by beings who expect it to fail at the worst possible moment. The overlords were beginning to understand the scope of what they faced. This wasn't just a technologically advanced species. This was a civilization that had spent decades preparing specifically to fight them. Your weapons are optimized for fighting species that think like you do, Chen explained. Your tactics assume opponents who will behave predictably. Your defenses are designed to counter known threats, but humans don't think like any species you've encountered before. What makes you so different? Demanded Overlord Prime Zennara. Chen's smile was sharp and predatory. We're persistence hunters. On Earth, our ancestors would track prey for days, weeks even. Never giving up, never stopping, always adapting to whatever the prey did to escape. We don't win fights by being stronger or faster. We win by being more stubborn than physics allows. Marcus provided a demonstration. Throughout hegemony space, the human ships began moving in complex patterns that made the Overlord's military advisors frantically recalculate threat assessments. The ships weren't just positioned strategically, they were constantly repositioning, creating overlapping fields of coverage that made it impossible to attack any human vessel without exposing attackers to fire from multiple directions. Your empire has ruled for 3,000 years, Chen observed. That's a long time to go without facing serious opposition. Long enough to forget that evolution doesn't stop just because you've achieved dominance. While you've been managing your empire, Marcus added, we've been evolving. Not just biologically, but technologically, tactically, strategically. Every human ship in this fleet represents the accumulated knowledge of a species that has never stopped adapting, never stopped innovating, never stopped preparing for the next threat. Overlord Veltheros asked the question that none of them wanted to voice. What would happen if we chose to fight you? Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. You would lose. Not because we're stronger than you, but because we're willing to do whatever it takes to win. Our entire species has been preparing for this war since before some of your crew members were born. We know your capabilities better than you do. We've planned for every scenario, developed counters for every tactic, and built redundancies for every system. But more importantly, she continued, we've learned from every species you've conquered. We know their technologies, their innovations, their unique approaches to problem solving. Your empire gave us the greatest gift any enemy could provide, a detailed catalog of every civilization you've defeated, and we've incorporated the best ideas from all of them. The display showed technical specifications that made the Overlord's strategic analysts start calculating frantically. The human ships weren't just advanced. They were equipped with hybrid technologies that combined innovations from dozens of different species. We didn't just study you, Chen concluded. We studied everyone you've conquered, and we've built our fleet using the collective knowledge of 100 civilizations. You're not just facing humanity. You're facing the combined innovation of every species that ever dared to resist your empire. The transmission paused, leaving the Overlords to contemplate the scope of what they had stumbled into. They weren't facing a primitive species. The emergency transmission reached every corner of hegemony space simultaneously. On thousands of worlds and hundreds of star systems, the same message played across every communication network, translated into every known language. Captain Sarah. Chen stood before the assembled Hegemony Council, her image broadcasting from the bridge of the Indomitable. Behind her, the tactical displays showed the true scope of the human deployment. Not just the 400 ships they had initially detected, but over 1,000 vessels positioned throughout the galaxy. Citizens of the Hegemony, Chen began, her voice carrying across the void to reach billions of beings on countless worlds. My name is Captain Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Starfleet and the newly formed Galactic Cooperation Alliance. In the council chamber on Vorthak Prime, Overlord Prime Zennara felt her world crumbling around her. 3,000 years of absolute power, and it was ending because of a species they had dismissed as primitive. For 3 millennia, Chen continued, your rulers have maintained control through fear and overwhelming force. They have convinced you that their dominance was natural, inevitable, and necessary for galactic order. Today, that lie ends. Across the galaxy, reactions varied dramatically. On the core worlds where hegemony citizens had lived in comfort and security, there was shock and disbelief. But on the rim worlds, in the labor colonies, among the subjugated species that had served as the foundation of the empire, there was something else entirely: hope. The Hegemony Council has a choice to make, Chen announced. They can join us in building a new galactic order based on cooperation and mutual respect, or they can face the consequences of their actions. But either way, the age of galactic tyranny is over. Admiral Zethkar's image flickered as he transmitted from his flagship, his voice carrying desperation. Captain Chen, you cannot possibly maintain control over an entire galaxy with 1,000 ships. The logistics alone are impossible. Chen's smile was patient, almost sympathetic. Admiral, you're still thinking like a conqueror. We're not here to control the galaxy, we're here to liberate it. As if summoned by her words, new contacts began appearing on the tactical displays. Ships that bore the markings of species the hegemony had conquered centuries ago. Fleets that had been hidden in the outer rim waiting for this moment. Marcus's voice filled the council chamber. For 60 years, we have been in contact with resistance movements throughout your empire. Every species you conquered but never quite destroyed. Every civilization that maintained hope despite centuries of oppression. They have been preparing just as we have. The scale of it was staggering. The Varkesh, conquered 800 years ago but never quite broken. The Kalari, whose entire civilization had been reduced to technical workers but who had secretly maintained their engineering expertise. The Thorian Republic, scattered across a dozen systems but never losing their desire for freedom. How? Whispered Overlord Kethmore, his crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. How did you coordinate with so many species without our knowledge? Captain Chen gestured to her communications officer. Because you never understood the most important aspect of human nature. We make friends easily. When we encountered each resistance cell, we didn't try to dominate them. We offered them something the hegemony never had: partnership. The tactical display updated again, showing the true scope of the alliance. Hundreds of species, thousands of ships, millions of beings who had been waiting for someone to challenge the hegemony's absolute power. But this isn't about revenge, Chen clarified, her voice cutting through the chaos in the council chamber. This is about justice. Every species deserves the right to determine their own destiny. Every civilization should have the chance to develop according to their own values and capabilities. Overlord Veltharos, ancient beyond measure, spoke with the weight of millennia. And what of order? What of stability? The hegemony has maintained peace for 3,000 years. The peace of the grave, Chen replied sharply. The stability of the prison. Yes, you've prevented wars by crushing anyone who might fight them. But you've also prevented progress, innovation, and growth. The galaxy has been stagnant for 1,000 years because you were too afraid of losing power to allow change. Marcus added clinical observations. Analysis of galactic technological development shows a severe decline in innovation over the past millennium. Species that were once leaders in scientific advancement have been reduced to producing basic goods for the hegemony. The rate of discovery has dropped to less than 1% of pre-hegemony levels. We offer something different, Chen continued. A galaxy where species can trade freely, share knowledge openly, and develop their unique capabilities without fear. A civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. As she spoke, reports began flooding in from across hegemony space. On industrial worlds, workers were laying down their tools and demanding representation. On agricultural planets, farmers were refusing to send their harvests to the core worlds without fair compensation. On mining stations, entire crews were declaring independence. The empire was dissolving from within. "This is impossible," Overlord Prime Zen-Nara declared, her voice cracking with desperation. "You cannot coordinate a galactic revolution." "We're not coordinating it," Chen replied calmly. "We're simply providing the catalyst. The desire for freedom was already there. We just had to prove that the hegemony wasn't invincible." Admiral Zethkar's tactical displays showed the scope of the uprising. Entire sectors were declaring independence. Military units were defecting. Even on the core worlds, protests were erupting in cities that hadn't seen unrest in centuries. "What do you want from us?" Overlord Prime Zen-Nara asked, her 6 eyes focusing on Chen with desperate intensity. Chen's expression softened slightly. "The same thing we want from everyone. A chance to build something better. Your species has valuable knowledge and experience. Your technology could benefit the entire galaxy if it were shared rather than hoarded. Your organizational skills could help coordinate trade and diplomacy between hundreds of worlds. But your days of ruling through fear are over," she continued firmly. "Join the Galactic Cooperation Alliance as equals. Contribute your expertise to the common good, and help us build a civilization that benefits everyone, or remain in isolation, clinging to the remnants of an empire that no longer exists." Overlord Veltharos leaned forward, his ancient mind grasping the scope of what was being offered. "You would forgive 3,000 years of oppression? You would allow us to join this alliance as equals?" "Humans understand that the past cannot be changed," Chen replied. "But the future can be shaped. We're not interested in punishment or revenge. We're interested in progress." Marcus added his perspective. "Analysis indicates that the hegemony species possess considerable administrative and technological capabilities that would be valuable to a cooperative galactic civilization. Integration rather than elimination serves the optimal outcome for all parties." The silence in the council chamber stretched for long minutes. Around them, the displays showed an empire in collapse, but also the beginnings of something new. Species that had been enemies for millennia were already beginning to communicate. Trade agreements were being negotiated. Scientific information was being shared freely for the first time in centuries. Finally, Overlord Prime Zen-Nara spoke. "And if we refuse?" Chen's expression became deadly serious. "Then you will discover what happens when you threaten the survival of a species that has never learned to quit. We have spent 60 years preparing for every possible scenario. If the hegemony chooses war, we will give you war, and we will win. But," she continued, her voice softening again, "we would prefer to give you peace. Real peace, based on mutual respect and shared prosperity. The choice is yours." The transmission paused, leaving the overlords to contemplate their options. Around them, their empire was dissolving, but something new was taking its place. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy was free to determine its own destiny. "You have 72 hours to decide," Chen announced. "Join the Galactic Cooperation Alliance and help us build a better future, or face the consequences of choosing isolation. But understand this, the age of the hegemony is over. The only question now is whether you want to be part of what comes next." The transmission ended, leaving the overlords staring at displays that showed a galaxy transformed. In 72 hours, they would make a choice that would determine not just their own fate, but the fate of countless species across the stars. For the first time in 3 millennia, the future was unwritten, and humanity, the species that had learned to thrive on a world where everything was trying to kill them, was ready to help right it.